All right, in this video, I want to share a dream I had. This one was interesting, so I want to record it. I don't know if I'll post this. I just don't know. I have dreams every now and then, like I imagine you all do, and I generally don't record them, but this one, I want to. I want to remember it. I want to think about it. I've already did a little bit of looking into this stuff before I did this video, and that's what I want to talk about here. So, what you're seeing here is over here in this area is the first part of my dream. And I'm in a hallway here. And it's relatively dark, not like terrifying, scary, dark. It's the feeling is just neutral. Like you're in this big hallway of maybe underground, like some kind of subway, right? Because over here we got like, looks kind of like rubble and stuff. And all these little marks that I have, they're just people that I didn't focus on. But there's just people around. The M is for me, and the P I'll tell you about in a second. And I'm in this area here. And there has a lot to do with brown in this video. I mean, in this dream that I'm putting into this video. And I had to look up brown. And I'll talk about that momentarily. But let's get into why. So, the start of the dream, I'm here. And I'm just kind of hanging out. And you know how it's a dream? You don't really realize you're dreaming. You don't think anything's weird. But I'm here and I'm with this guy here. Who is this guy? I put a P here because one of my guilty pleasures is football. I enjoy the sport of American football. And I like the Philadelphia Eagles because Philadelphia, the church of brotherly love. I figured if I'm gonna watch football, I should root for Philadelphia. Simply to make it Christian, right? And then if anybody asks me why do I root for the Eagles, I can talk about Christianity. I can talk about the Bible and such things, right? I can use it as also a soapbox to preach a little bit as well, right? And there's a guy I like to listen to on YouTube, and his YouTube channel is the Philly Special Show. And there's a young fellow there who does his show talking about the Eagles. And for some reason, he's there. And he's kind of excited. Because apparently we're back in time where the Eagles are just acquiring a certain player named A.J. Brown. He ends up being a star player for the Eagles. And that's the first mention of Brown. And he's excited because he's going to be able to get to meet him. He's going to be able to get to interview him. And I was excited for him. I was kind of, like, indifferent about it. Like, hey, that's cool. Like, I had other things on my mind. It wasn't, like, a top priority to me. But I was excited for him. Like, his excitement made me feel like, yeah, I'm happy for you, man. I can't wait for you to go do that and to see the stuff later on about you talking to him. It's going to be cool. So, he has to go this way where it's all kind of weird looking. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Like a broken down world or something. And he goes and I don't see A.J. Brown or any of the interview, but he goes and that's kind of like, I don't see him anymore. And but I know he's going to do that. And for some reason, when I look this way, I think of the past. Because this happened years ago when A.J. Brown came over to the Eagles. Not that you're going to be familiar with this kind of thing. That's why I'm telling you, football is one of my guilty pleasures there. And once he goes and he's doing that, I'm like, okay. And I'm kind of focused on the area, this hallway that I'm in. Not a very long hallway. And out of the blue, if I remember correctly, it's from this direction. Somebody comes over here, and it's my wife. And in the dream, I don't realize, that this is an oddity, right? That my wife is gone, right? It just seems kind of more natural. So I go, hey, and I go over to her, and I give her a kiss, and then she just kind of quickly is like, let's go up this way. She was kind of like, hey, let's go. We gotta join the Browns. And I was kind of like, what? And she puts on a Cleveland Browns uniform. Not like I watch her dress. It's just like all of a sudden as she's coming over this direction, she puts it on. Like she's going to play football. And she's kind of like, come on, we're going to play. And I was kind of like, what? But I was also like, I wasn't super confused. I was kind of more like, all right, let's go. Let's play some football kind of thing, right? But as, like I see with this arrow, I show you this arrow, now all of a sudden, looking this way down the hallway, now we're looking up this way. And when I come and turn right, this is what I see, a mountain. This is kind of just like rocky area here. There's clouds and a kind of a building that I'm not quite sure what it is. But I see there's like some people going up, and there seems to be a lot of people up here. But I'm not focused on them. I'm focused on my wife wearing a Browns uniform going up here as the stairs curve, right? And she's like going off way ahead of me. Like somehow she's like, by the time I'm starting to get up on the steps, she's already up there. And I'm like, well, wow, wait up for me, right? Like, what's the hurry? What's the rush? What's going on here? And I was like, all right. And so we got 2 mentions of Brown. And now looking at hindsight, I'm kind of thinking this hallway is time, right? The past is that direction, and then coming over here is the future, right? This is just coming to me now when I was thinking, like, why was I thinking, like, this was so much the past? Like, in my mind, I was thinking, hey, this is the past where we just time traveled or something. So I'm assuming going down the hallway is going down your life, but then eventually, your life ends, right? Excuse me. So I come over and I see this mountain and I start going up, and I have these little dots over here because the stairway kind of curves a little bit as it goes up. I notice that I can go straight and use a couple of these broken steps and jump to get up faster. And I do this a couple of times to get up there. All right? But as I'm going up this mountain, in my mind I'm saying, I'm going to get to be Paul Brown. And this is kind of weird. I'm going to write this here. Because apparently we're going to play for the Cleveland Browns. Paul Brown was the first head coach of the Cleveland Browns, and they named the team after him, right? But in my mind, I thought I was going to be, see if I got some room here, Jim Brown. I was saying Paul Brown, but I thought I was going to be this guy who is a player who played for the Browns, and a lot of people think he is the best player at his position ever, right? A legendary Hall of Fame player. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, when we go in there, I'm going to be this player. You know when you're a kid and you pretend to be your favorite player when you go out to play with your friends, whether you play baseball, basketball, like I'm shooting shots like Michael Jordan or something, right? And that's my mindset. I was like, I'm going to go be I was saying Paul Brown, but in my head I was picturing Jim Brown. So you see how we got 4 mentions of Brown, which is interesting because when I looked up Brown in the scriptures, it's only mentioned 4 times, and all in one chapter, Genesis chapter 30. And this got me to look it up, Brown. Now, keep in mind, I'm not a Cleveland Browns fan. I'm kind of meh about them. They they seem to have a little bit of like spark of something going to happen with them, but they seem to be cursed, if you know, right? And they're a poorly managed team. And the Philadelphia Eagles on the other side are a very well managed team, right? And it's basically contrast, like the worst managed team to the best managed team. And when we get up there, what was supposed to happen is we were supposed to play against the Philadelphia Eagles. And I was like, oh man, I like the Philadelphia Eagles. But I was like, all right, whatever, let's go up there, we're going to go play, right? So I get up there, and now coming into this area. I come into this building here, and I'm showing a cut section of being in the room. There's a bench, and everybody who comes into a certain area of up here into this building, it's like you're given a name, right? I just assumed I was Paul Brown, right? But I was thinking of this. I don't remember the name that was actually said when I walk through this area where you get a name. And that's why I have this right here. Because when I went up there was somebody else who, well, I know, I'm not going to mention who it is, who I was thinking isn't being genuine. Like, I don't think this person is a good person. I don't think they're really a Christian. I think they are being fake and a manipulator, right? And while I'm going through to get named to then be on the team to go play, there's this guy, and he has a black jersey on, and on his jersey it says, it actually spells it out properly, some effing guy. And he's all excited, but he doesn't get to go through the area where you get named and get to play. But he's still acting like there's something special going on, right? That he's part of the whole thing, right? And he got a completely black jersey, and it says some effing guy on the back of it. And in hindsight, I was thinking about the rich man and Lazarus. And I was thinking about judgment, as if up here is judgment. And if you're in the book of life, God's going to give you a new name, right? And if you're not in the book of life, God's like, who are you? Like in the rich man and Lazarus. God knows Lazarus, so he gives him a name, Lazarus. But the rich guy, he doesn't have a name. He just calls him the rich guy. He doesn't know who he is, right? So I was thinking that the guy I was imagining being a fake Christian there, that God doesn't know him. He doesn't have a name, right? But he thinks he's good and golden and good to go. But he doesn't truly know God, and God doesn't truly know him. So he's just some effing guy, right? So I come down to this bottom area here, and it's basically like a kind of like a closed off dugout, but we do have an open area where you come through this area to go out into which appears to be the field or something. I didn't get a good look. I can just see that it's outside, but we're all in here, and there's a bench where people are wearing the jerseys, whether they're on the Eagles side or the Brown side. We're all together, right? It's almost like we're the same team, the Eagles and Browns coming together. And there's somebody sitting like real close to my wife and she's feeling uncomfortable about it. I don't know why, what's going on, but I ended up just sitting in between them, right? And then I'm just kind of waiting for everything to happen. And that's kind of where the dream ends. And then when I wake up, I keep going over the dream, over in the dream, because I didn't want to forget it. Right? And I got out of the blankets, went to the bathroom, cool off so that you kind of wake up, and I was going over the dream, so that it really stuck in my head. So when I got up in the morning, I could think about it. So when I got up, I wanted to look up Brown, right? Before, I've already looked up the name Paul because I wanted to know the meaning of the change of the name from Saul to Paul. And Brown, I wanted to look up. So it's not mentioned in the New Testament, so I don't know what it is in the Greeks, but I went and looked to the Hebrew and found the word. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Like chom, something like that. Chum, kum. You know how the Hebrews have that? So it might be a chum. I can't do it. But you know what I mean, right? They'd be like, sham, and they kind of like intentionally spit all over the place to try to say the word, you know? And, but anyway, I looked it up, and the word means like warm, like bathed in the sun kind of thing, sunburnt, dark, and it has a connotation to humility. And apparently also refers to the earth, like humble beginnings coming from the dirt. And that's why it's mentioned 4 times. 4 represents the earth, the 4 corners of the earth. And it's mentioned 4 times in my dream. So I thought that was interesting. And because we have A.J. Brown, the Cleveland Browns, Paul Brown, and Jim Brown. 4 mentions of Brown while doing this. So I was getting the message that we got to be humble, right? Because Paul also means humbled and to be humble. So it's like Saul was humbled by Jesus, and that's what his name was then changed to, right? Humbled, or humble, something along those lines, right? Being humbled, humble guy, you know? But anyway, so we got like a double add-on there for humble pie, right? Eat your humble pie. Because the name I was calling myself that I was going to receive is Paul Brown, Paul Brown, Paul Brown. So it's like double down on the humility, right? So I was thinking, all right, a big message here is eat some humble pie. Don't think yourself too high and mighty, right? And then I was thinking, well, we also joined with the eagles. So what does eagle mean in the Hebrew? Well, before I get into that, what I did was I looked at the Paleo Hebrew for brown. And the Paleo Hebrew for brown, let's go to a brown color here. Not too dark. We don't want it to look like the black, so. With the Paleo Hebrew, we have the first letter means a fence, or a wall of separation, kind of like dividing. Let me thicken it up so you can see this better. So I just put an F to represent like a fence gate, a wall of separation, a tent wall kind of thing. The second letter is a Vav or Wav, which is a nail. We'll just put a V because it's simpler than putting a W. And it's basically like sealing something together. represents the Messiah, where Jesus is sealed to us by being like nailed to us, like he's nailed to the cross, right? Joined to us. And that's kind of what's going on there. And then the third letter, the last letter of this word, is a mem, which has to do with water, a great sea, and can represent chaos. So I was kind of looking at that and thinking, what can that mean? Where we have like a border connected to the sea, to chaos, to a great expanse, right? And I'm just kind of thinking how this represents humble, is to realize that like you're on the edge of the sea there, and you look at the sea like you're at the ocean, and how massive it is. You look at that, how small you really are, right? So then I was like, all right, what about eagle in the Paleo Hebrew? And the first letter in that is a nun. And this is a seed representing the prosperity of a kingdom, right? The growing of a family, the prosperity of the kingdom, the seed, like the word. And then the second letter, it's also a 3-letter word, is a shen. In the Paleo Hebrew, this is teeth. And teeth represent like devouring, breaking something down to destroy it. Because that's what you do with your teeth. You destroy something, some piece of food, to then be able to swallow it. So we have that. And then the last letter here would be a resh, which would be the head of a man, right? Which can represent, somebody's head, their mind. It can represent leadership, right? So with the eagle there, I forgot what the nun meant for a second there. Oh, it's like the kingdom, the seed. Like the seed we're given through the word of God, through Jesus Christ, prospers us, where then we are able to do what we're told by Paul, where God through us will crush the head of Satan. And I believe this is why we're being told to be humble. Or I don't know why I said we. But I mean as Christians, if this applies to me, I would imagine it applies to all Christians. We're about to crush the head of Satan. He's supposed to be crushed under our feet soon, as Paul tells us. So when that happens, that you might feel pretty exalted, right? You're going to feel pretty high and mighty. So you got to eat a double portion of that humble pie to make sure that you don't think too highly of yourself. You're going to fall into the same trap that Lucifer did in the first place, right? And yeah, so I was thinking that what's going on in my dream is time is going to pass. Focus on being humbled, because soon Satan is going to be wounded under your feet. And then you're going to end up being exalted as you're taken up to heaven and given a new name where you're going to be judged, right? And you're going to get to join the team, God's team, right? Which is a joining of the worst managed team and the best managed team, right? From earth to heaven, the physical and the spiritual coming together, right? And it makes kind of a lot of sense. Like the hallway represents time here. I don't know why. Oh, I turned the pen off. That's why it's not working. The hallway represents going through time, because when Jesus returns, he comes with, like my wife, those who have fallen asleep in him, they come back, they receive their bodies. She puts on the Browns uniform, right? She now gets her new body, right? It makes sense. And then going up the mountain to the kingdom of God, God's mountain, God's kingdom, to join the team there with the eagles, right? The spiritual beings, the angels, right? It seems like a whole lot being said there. But the main message is humble pie. Humble pie. So let's just put a humble pie over this and wrap this up here. So I'm not quite sure how to do a good looking pie here, but there's your humble pie. And it doesn't taste like blueberry, even though it's blue. It would be nice if it did, but it doesn't. But anyway, that is that for that dream and how I was breaking it down and interpreting it. But yeah, I'm still going over it and thinking about it. Thought it was pretty interesting. Hope you do too, if I end up sharing this. But yeah, with all that being said, humbling thoughts. I was going to say humiliating. But, if that's what you need to think of to humble yourself, I guess do that too. But, don't think too highly of yourself. One of the things I've been asking God about is to remind us always of how we are the clay and He's the potter. That we didn't give ourselves life. We don't sustain our lives. And we can't keep ourselves alive and protect ourselves to make sure we don't die, because we can't control everything going on around us. And we didn't make ourselves and make us who we are. God is the potter. He is making us who and what we are. We just have the choice whether or not to submit to that or not. And I ask Him to remind us that we need to submit and surrender to Him, that He can make us into who and what He wants us to be, because who and what He wants us to be is better than who and what we think we are and what we can make of ourselves. And to bring this to our remembrance every time we need to remember it. Because it's something I think we all need to think about. Because it's hard to think of you are who you are because God made you this way. And He gave you the desires you have because He plans on fulfilling your desires. Right? And we didn't do this. We didn't make ourselves. Because if we made ourselves, we would change ourselves nilly-willy as we saw fit. Right? To change our attractiveness, to change our desires, to change different things about ourselves. Right? But God's like, no, I've got a way I'm going to make you. And when you're trying to change that, it's like you're butting heads with God and you're trying to make yourself. When you have no idea what you're doing, you just got to leave it in God's hands and trust Him. And He'll mold you into something better than you could imagine. So I think that's some of the humble pie maybe you can be thinking about. So maybe because of that, I will share this. And yeah, that's that. Thank you for watching all the way through. I know it's a dream. I usually don't share dreams because it's a dream. And I usually think dreams are meant for you, if at all. For anybody, I mean, sometimes dreams are just dreams, right? Sometimes you're just dreaming about things you are thinking about. Something you watched before you went to bed, right? But I was not thinking about football last night or before I was going to bed. So, yeah, I think that's a little weird how all this played out, but it stuck out to me. So, with all that being said, thanks for watching all the way through, giving me your time and attention. I appreciate it. I hope you learned something. Encourage you to eat humble pie, because I think that's the message. Maybe, like I said, it's just for me. Maybe I'm being a little too haughty or something. Or something's about to happen where I need to not let it go to my head. But, lessons that are meant for me, you could learn from them too, Just like I can learn lessons that are applied to you. My dad always told me to not only learn from your mistakes, but you got to learn from other people's mistakes. Right? So it's the same thing when you learn from your success, you learn from other people's success as well. So you take those things and you learn from it. So take that for what you will. But anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.